I'm going to say like an exaggerated thing. I think that the majority of time when I talk to people about a business idea that they had, that's like a good idea that they ended up not doing, the majority of the time it's because they saw somebody else that was already doing it. And I'm really grateful I met somebody early in my career who, when I had something similar, was like, "What are you talking about? That's free market research." He's like, "They just proved that the thing that you're interested in can exist and can make money, and now you can like look at what they're doing and figure out how you would differentiate it or make it better." He's like, "You should only ever be encouraged when you see somebody come along and prove something is viable in a field." And it like flipped my brain upside down. And now like that's a gift I often give to other people, is to be like, you know, I'm glad that you're doing all the stuff you're doing now. So this isn't really about you so much, Pranab. But in another world, you and I could be like, all right, boy, screw it. Let's go like make a boba protein thing now because it looks like somebody else is doing something similar. So even more so,
Yeah.
let's figure out like, let's reverse engineer their business plan. But I feel like that's something that I would imagine you've resonated with as well, Andrew.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of that happens in the food world, right? Is like you see trends that take on and that take off from travel, from whatever it may be. I watched that YouTube video on burgers from Kenji Lopez and then immediately changed the way that I did burgers. But yeah, I think to have influence in the market and see somebody else be successful at something is a great way to look at it. The only time that got tricky for me is that there's this weird sort of, almost like somebody owns the idea until it becomes widespread enough that it's not an individual thing. And there are certain restaurants that have done things. You think about like El Bulli, which was one of the best restaurants in the world, used hydrocolloids to spherify a liquid olive. Right. So they got all of the flavor of an olive, but they encapsulated it in this perfect little sphere. When you put it in your mouth, it dissolved and then it's boom, olive, right?
What?
So yeah, and
Yeah, I know
then
what you're talking about.
then all of a sudden you start seeing this pop up on menus, and it's like, oh, they're ripping off El Bulli, they're ripping off El Bulli, and it's like, at what point is something inspiration or you're inspired by versus you are taking advantage of? And I think that's where the line gets really tricky. And I think with food, it gets very blurred because a lot of people have that ultra personal connection to a recipe that they put out into the world. And I think that's where I look at it. And that's my spin on kind of what you were saying, Charlie. But yeah, you see Korean fried chicken all over the United States now. And 15 years ago, we were doing that on my food truck and people were like, "What the like? Why would you do Korean fried chicken in the South?" And I'm like, "Well, I had it when I was in LA, and it blew my mind. So I want to bring that piece of LA back to Nashville." And it just kind of gets weird like that sometimes. But yeah,